Hello, I wanted to present to you this Shimano XT group. It's near complete. There's just a seat post, I believe, that's missing. It was released in 86, 87 I think, and it was produced until around about 93 when Shimano made a completely different group. So I'm going to present to you over here firstly the bare trap styled flat pedals. Over here you have the headset, the shark fin to stop your chain jumping off or falling off while you was riding, or you'd accidentally jumped off onto a lower gear. Over here you have the 2-finger and 4-finger brake levers. Over here you have the U-brake that was mounted at the back of the bike. Here you had as an option as well for the back but also the front, the cantilever brakes. Over here we have a quick release skewer with that famous little rubber ring that I think XTR also included. I think it was just a little bit different. Over here I've put the front and rear derailleurs in all their varieties, so the M730, 32 and 35. Just here you have the short cage version of the M732. Over here you have this lovely forged crankset with its dust caps. I also have another crankset with the anodized kind of bronze goldy chain rings. Here the most famous probably the thumb shifters in their 6 and 7 speed variety, and over here I have some scruffy looking hubs that I actually have a nicer pair, but they're laced up on a wheel at the moment, and they also include the skewers with the rubber ring at the end. So let's have a look at some of the differences between the mainly the derailleurs, but also a quick look at the hubs and the brake levers that had a few differences over the years or between their years of production. So let's begin on the hubs. This is the M730 version. I think they also made an M732 version. The main difference between those two versions was the sizing of the flanges. This version, the M730, had smaller spacing between the flanges to accommodate the 130mm OLN spacing that was on older MTBs. The updated version would have had spacing for 135mm. Another difference is the version that had nuts on it instead of a quick release skewer, and they would have had a longer spindle for the lock nuts. We're at the brake levers now. This is the M730 and this is the M732. The main difference between the two, other than the fact that this is a 4-finger and this is a 2-finger version, is the introduction of SLR, Shimano Linear Response. And so what that means is that here there is a spring that pulls the cable back into place, the brake cable, whilst the older version has absolutely nothing, and it relies solely on the spring that's inside the cantilever brake to put the cable back into its place. I think that's pretty much. I forgot to include these in the group. These are the XT rapid fire styled shifting that Shimano introduced, I think, in 91. I thought it would be interesting just to add these. So obviously you have the same SLR brakes they integrated and attached with the shifter. This obviously pretty much changed everything in terms of shifting, and it's still something that's existent today. The shifters, probably the most iconic part of this group. On the top is the M730 and here's the M732. This is 6-speed, this is a 7-speed. Each one actually has an extra click, so when you're going to the top you can go into an extra speed. So technically the 6-speed is actually a 7 and the 7-speed is a 8-speed. If I remember correctly, when opening them, the upgraded M732 version has plastic seals underneath to protect from the rain, whilst the older version just has a copper kind of seal. I think that's the ultimate difference really between the two thumb shifters. They're incredibly both very good. Also the dial is slightly different, obviously there's a different shape on the top, and that's it. Front derailleurs, this is the M730, this is the 32 and 35. There's not that many difference between all of them. The logo is slightly smaller on the M730, the older version, than the rest. The arms here that pull the cable is at a different angle slightly compared to the older and the last version. And the real big difference, I would say, is on the upgraded versions. You no longer have a clip here that's removable that enables you to change the cage, and on the newer versions you no longer have this option. Okay, and here's the rear derailleurs. So again, I would say that the older one is slightly better finished. One of the main differences maybe is that the Allen key bolts on the older one was bigger. It's probably size I don't know, 6, and this must be 5 on the later versions. I think also that the jockey wheels in the later versions use ceramic bushes, whereas the older version did not. Now generally the finish is just much better in the older one. Here you can see on the plate here it's much thinner, and here it's less cut. Finally, the cantilever brakes. On the right you have the M730 and on the left the M732. The main difference between the two is that Shimano introduced SLR braking system, so Shimano linear response. And here you can see that there's a protruding piece of metal that's sticking out here, and what this does is it stops the cap from moving too far. And on the back you have the option of changing the spring tension from normal to SLR, and what that does is that whilst putting in SLR you are relying on the spring tension in the brake lever to pull the brake cable back into place, and whilst in normal position you're going to be more or less relying on the spring tension within the brake itself. So I think I've summed up more or less everything that I can think of. So thank you for listening. Peace out.